Welcome back to The Collision. It is Daniel here, and I am excited, honored today to be joined by a very special guest, and that is Mr. David Henrie, someone that I know many of you probably know from hit shows like Wizards of Waverly Place, but is the creator and the star of the really excellent new kind of docuseries Seeking Beauty, with the first episodes releasing on EWTN Plus, as well as YouTube on January 19th. Welcome, David. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat about this new series.
No problem, man. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and are you in Rome right now? I know you're somewhere.
I'm in Rome in this little apartment my family's renting right now. So a kid might run in at some point naked with pasta screaming for something.
I'm a dad, so I know that
I'm
that
hoping that
experience.
doesn't happen. I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'll say too right off the start, I've had the opportunity to watch through most of this series. Just absolutely love with all that you're doing through this Seeking Beauty series. So tell me about it. I'm curious. Like, this is a unique series. There's not really like anything that comes to mind that's similar to what you're striving for in this series. Where does like the inspiration for a project like this come from? Like, how does David go from the set of Waverly Place or Hollywood dramas to a search for beauty in Italy?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I was brought the project by Mundo Reyes, who came up with the idea. It aligned with my personal beliefs and feelings about beauty. I feel like I'm your typical American in a sense that I grew up going to public school, just lived a very normal life until I started acting in Hollywood and working as an actor. But before that, I just kind of had a normal American childhood, and beauty's not a part of the conversation. With how I feel like a lot of us were raised, beauty was always a cost that couldn't be cut. It was something soft. It's not something you wanted to invite into your masculine world. And and I couldn't have been more wrong about that. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. Learning about the place that beauty had in past cultures and why, and how it's still so relevant today, has just been so inspiring. And how it really is, beauty is the fingerprint of God. It's the language of the divine. And I didn't understand any of that. And so this series has helped me realize that inviting beauty into your life is inviting a doorway to truth and goodness and all transcendentals that get you to God. And it's so important. It's so important. It's like, why do these buildings that have been built, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, still have such resonance and such relevancy? I know buildings that were built 10 years ago that no one gives a crap about now, that because they're ugly. It's like, if you build something truly beautiful, you're going to cause people to pause, stop, contemplate. St. Thomas says that one of the primary effects of beauty is contemplation. And that's true, right? Think of yourself seeing a beautiful waterfall or seeing a beautiful painting or a beautiful piece of architecture. You pause for a moment. And this show really did put beauty into my life in a way that has prominence now where it didn't before.
Yeah, and you say too, there's I love how you intro each of these episodes where you have a quote that says, I've always been captivated by beauty, the kind that stirs the soul and points towards something greater. Can you maybe just speak a bit on that? Like how in your own life, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but like how has, what has beauty meant in your own kind of faith, your own, walk with God, and maybe just more broadly, like how can beauty sort of stir the soul and ultimately point towards God?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big question, like, is beauty subjective or is it objective? Like, is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Um, or is it something outside of the eye of the beholder? And it's an interesting one because if beauty is subjective, then when you say your wife's beautiful, all you mean is, I think you're beautiful. Just me. I'm not calling you objectively beautiful. I'm calling you what my just what I think is beautiful, right? Or if you see a beautiful waterfall, it's like, that's beautiful. You instinctively say it in an objective sense, and it's like, well, if something is objectively beautiful, then that's going to have an application to all peoples at all times and all ages and all belief systems. And you see that here in Rome, where people from all different walks of life are standing in awe at beauty. I remember when I had a friend of mine. I took him, and I discussed this in one of the episodes, but I took my friend to St. Peter's Basilica, and his mother was with him. And we walk in, the doors open, and it was just us. we had like the whole thing to ourselves. And I hear like this woman get punched in the gut behind me. I was like, what was this? I hear like this gasp. And I look back and his mother, my best friend's mother, is crying. And I'm like, what happened? Are you okay? And she's looking in awe at St. Peter's. And she just says, I used to be Christian. And I'm like, wow, that's the power of beauty. Beauty can be something that transcends your brain and hits you right in the soul. So for me, beauty is something that is not a cost that can be cut. It's something that you can invite into your own life in many different ways. You don't need money to do it. You can thrift your house into beauty very quickly and probably save money. You know, my wife and I do that all the time. Like we'll find these old antique things people are throwing away, and we put it in our house, and it just looks epic and looks glorious. And it's cheaper than the new thing that we were gonna buy anyway. So it's like beauty is something that I think we all need to figure out how to invite into our own lives in different ways, but into our own souls, most importantly. There's nothing more attractive than a beautiful person inside.
Yeah, yeah, and you've touched on this a little bit. You mentioned like the transcendentals, in philosophy, usually like the good, the true, and the beautiful are sort of lumped together
Yeah.
as the three. And obviously, I think most people can recognize the value of goodness and truth, and those are still very important, essential values, or they should be at least. And but like you said, I think beauty can get, it's treated more as an optional, a third thing. If you want to add a little extra spice, add a little beauty, but it's like, and you've touched on this a bit already. But do you see, like, why do you think our modern culture kind of like undervalues beauty today?
Well, I think it's a belief that you can't give what you don't have. So beauty in older cultures was the conversation. It's like if it doesn't have beauty in it, it doesn't have God's fingerprint on it. So no, we're not going to build it unless it's beautiful. Where today we're more utilitarian. You see, I want to be careful how I use words, but if you look at what communist countries have produced, it's not the most beautiful stuff, right? And it's like, why? Well, because God's out of the conversation. The dignity, the individuality of the human person is out of the conversation. And so you just have pure utility over anything else. And you just end up getting these ugly, gray, modern looking things that look like prisons. Um, and I think today we don't, if you look at these cultures back then, it was the faith and the culture was the faith. The kings were Catholic, everyone in the culture was of the faith. So everything that was produced represented that. Even women of the night would contribute to the building of their local cathedral because of what it stood for. And you have to picture at the time, like people didn't have TVs, they didn't have running water, they didn't even have bathrooms. Like they did not have beauty in their own homes. But if they could all contribute to this cathedral, that was a piece of heaven that was theirs, that they could all go to and see the grandeur and beauty of God. Um, so it's like, yeah, you can't give what you don't have. I think sharpening our understanding of beauty, I think, will be really helpful to create more beautiful cultures. And you're seeing this, right? There's this big, broad movement in Protestant and Catholic circles where people are returning to orthodoxy. I think the whole notion of modernism is just proving to be wanting. And I think people are intrigued by everlasting older institutions, and beauty is a big part of that conversation. And it's like, well, we just need to pick back up that candle and keep it lit and move it forward. Orthodoxy. I think this is the way forward. Is Chesterton's book. Um, so yeah, we're in interesting times, and I think your question is a very relevant one now. And I think we're learning from the past to inform our present.
Yeah, and I think you just touched on too, just the role of sort of the institute, the role of the church, because this series, there's an interesting tension really all throughout where you sort of show how like art and beauty, kind of sacred art, sacred beauty, is different. Like I think as one of your guests says, different from the rhythm of the world when he's talking about the chant music. And yet you also see throughout this series just the importance historically that the church was very much a presence in the culture, is very much integrated with the work that was being done by the great artists. So you have sort of this tension through this tug and pull with that.
Yeah.
Do you see that as still like a tension today? I guess, how do we sort of navigate some of that of, we're making something different than the world, sacred beauty, and yet we're still called to be a part of that conversation?
Yeah, that's what's so interesting to me and that I loved learning was that the church was on the forefront of the culture. It wasn't like this thing that was just tucked away for Sundays and then the rest of the world just moves along Monday to Saturday, and then Sunday we check in. Um, it was on the forefront of all the movements. Like, imagine if the church was at the forefront of AI, and without the church, AI couldn't even be there. Um, like, that was the equivalent of the technological advancements that they were making back in the day. The church was a part of all of it, and in fact, it came from the church. You look at the old monasteries; all our notions and understanding of the human person, of sciences, the various sciences, all came out of these monasteries. Our inheritance of literature, of the Greek works, all from these monasteries. Like, it it was so impressive to me to see how the church was so active in helping shape the culture. And that was part of the heartbreaking thing too, is I'm like, why isn't that now? Like, what it's like this voice crying out in the wilderness while the culture's just doing its own thing. But back in the day, it was at the center of the culture. Like, the cathedral was the heartbeat of the town. Um, so yeah, that was I think we're shifting back in that direction though, because I think people are seeing how wanting the world is, especially when you gain it or get it in some way, shape, or form. You see that that doesn't fulfill you. Um, so I think it's going to continue to become more relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously your search for beauty in the series took you to Italy. You're still in Italy as we're doing this, and where there is like such a rich history, legacy of beautiful art, culture. I did part of my honeymoon was spent in Italy, in Rome and Florence, so I was able to experience a lot of those same places that you were introducing audiences to. But maybe what are some lessons throughout kind of making this series, searching for finding beauty maybe in unexpected places that can be, and you touched on a bit like the thrifting, but that can be applied to here in North America, here in just sort of everyday life. Like, what are some lessons you learned about searching for beauty that that you can integrate into sort of your everyday life here?
Yeah. To me, I think the root lesson was that beauty is not just something that, to me, the thing that I took away from this that was really impressive to me that made me want to reshape my own life was learning about the faith of the people and the cultures that built these places. In terms of my own life, because I'm an artist and I have a company and we make projects, and I was like just blown away by how coordinated and how passionate these people were about their faith to give you these great works. So to me, it really inspired me to want to be as faithful and holy as I could possibly be. So that way I could produce, garbage in, garbage out. So I could produce things that would also have that beauty. And I think secondly, there's nothing more beautiful than the human person. And so the more we can make our own internal lives beautiful, the more we can bring order, clarity, symmetry, radiance into our own life, the more we'll experience its fruits. There's nothing more attractive than a beautiful person. I don't mean on the exterior. I mean, I've met some nuns that objectively on the outside, it's not the most beautiful face in the world. However, they're so attractive, and I don't mean that at all in a sexual sense. I mean it in a sense of like, they inspire you. Leave that conversation lighter. It's actually incredible, that beauty that you see exuding from them, and that's the beauty that I think these buildings are trying to inspire. Is the beauty of a soul.
Yeah, and I love too in the series. You obviously people think of like visual beauty is the first thing that comes to mind, but you also look at like silence and culture and food and just finding beauty in just the everyday aspects of life that perhaps we overlook. Kind of last question for you. This series, sort of your hopes for it. Like there is a very much like a devotional quality to this series. Obviously, it's entertaining, it's informative, it's fun to watch, but there is like I think a deeper spiritual level to this series. Like, what do you hope people take away? People that watch through this series, like do you have like, kind of what in your mind makes it like a success for you that the audience carries with them from this?
A success for me is if I meet someone on the street, I don't know, 6 months from now, that's like, I went to Rome because of you, or I went to Subiaco because of your show, or I went to wherever because of your show. And that had an impact on me. And I've invited beauty into my own life in a different way. Thank you for making the show. Like, that would be, and it's not thank me, it's thank God who helped put me in this position to even make this. But that, I think, would be a success for me, is if someone grabs me and says, hey, I figured out a way to get there, and I did, and it changed my life. I think that would be a massive success for me.
Yeah, well, I think you will. I think you will accomplish that. I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes open just to the power of beauty that maybe they've overlooked or just forgotten in the busyness of life. So, like I said, encourage everyone go check out this series. The first episodes will be releasing on EWTN Plus, as well as debuting the first episode on YouTube as well on January 19th. So go check that out. It's definitely worth the watch. And thanks so much, Henry, for taking. I know it's a busy time for you, but appreciate just hearing your heart for this series.
No problem. God bless you, man. Thank you for the great interview.